Namaskar. Hello friends. I have been sharing with you my insight into some selected verses of the Bhagavad Gita. So far we have completed 7 chapters. Today we will take up some important verses from chapters 8 and 9. Verses 5 and 6 of chapter 8. अंतकाले च मामेव स्मरन् मुक्त्वा कलेवरं यः प्रयाति समद्भावं याति नास्त्यत्र संशयः यं यं वा अपि स्मरन् भावं त्यजत्यन्ते कलेवरं तं तमेवैति कौन्तेय सदा तद् भावभावितः. Literal meaning: one who remembers me while giving up his body at the moment of his death merges with me without any doubt. O Arjuna, with whatever bhav, that is thought or attitude, in mind a person gives up his body, he gets born again with the same bhav. Practical insight: a soul goes through multiple lives. The purpose why a soul gets embodied in the physical world is to experience the magnificent duality of the creation, though it is illusory. But the soul, which is subject to the limitations of the physical body, cannot experience in one life all that the physical world has on offer. That is the reason most people still have many unfulfilled desires at the time of their death. That is why the soul comes back to another life to continue experiencing more of the world and to fulfill the unfulfilled desires. It then follows that if and when one is not left with any desires at the time of death, he will be liberated from the repetitive cycle of birth and death. In that desireless state, one is only thinking of God and not of the world at all. Verses 23 to 25 of chapter 8. Yatra kale tvanavrutti mavrittinchaiva yoginah prayata yanti tam kalam vakshyami bharatarshava agnirjyotirah shuklah षण्मासा उत्तरायणं तत्र प्रयाता गच्छन्ति ब्रह्म ब्रह्म विदो जनाः धूमो रात्रिस्तथा कृष्ण षण्मासा दक्षिणायनं तत्र चांद्रमसं ज्योतिर्योगी प्राप्य निवर्तते. Literal meaning: O Arjuna, I will tell you that time during which if a yogi dies, he does not get reborn, and also the time during which if a yogi dies, he has to get reborn. Self-realized people who die when fire flame, daytime, Shukla Paksha, that is first fortnight of the lunar month, and Uttarayana, that is sun over the northern hemisphere of earth, exist, they merge with Brahman. A yogi who dies when smoke, night time, Krishna Paksha, that is second fortnight of a lunar month, and Dakshinayan, that is the 6 months of a year when sun moves towards south over earth, namely July to December, such combination exists. That yogi enjoys the pleasures of Chandralok and instead of proceeding further on, returns to the earth. Practical insight: these verses describe the right and wrong time to die from the point of view of liberation from the repeated cycles of birth and death. However, Sant Jnaneshwar, in his commentary on these verses in his Jnaneshwari, says that a seeker who has got liberated while he is still alive does not have to bother about the timing of his death. He is already one with God and has nowhere to go after death. Now we go over to chapter 9, verses 4 and 5 of chapter 9. Maya tatamidam sarvam jagadyaktamurtina मत्स्थानि सर्वभूतानि न चाहं तेष्व वस्थितः न च मत्स्थानि भूतानि पश्य मे योगैश्वरम् भूतभृन्न च भूतस्थो ममात्मा भूतभावनः. Literal meaning: unmanifest as I am, I have pervaded this entire world. All the beings are in me, but I am not in them, and beings are not in me. See this magnificent divine principle. I am the one bearing all the beings, but I do not dwell in them, and my soul creates and sustains all the beings. Practical insight. These verses seem to be confusing and contradicting each other. However, the way to resolve that contradiction is by understanding the nature of creation. Creation is a transitory illusion. As such, there is nothing other than the singular Brahman on which this temporary illusion of creation with all the different objects appears. So, if we take a view that regards this duality as real, these verses appear confusing and contradictory. But if we discard the duality as unreal, then we can say anything about the beings. Like they are in the divine, but the divine is not in them, or that the divine pervades them, and yet it is not in them, etc. All these are equally valid or invalid. A similar situation is described in the scriptures by way of a story that starts as follows. There was a barren woman who gave birth to 2 children. The story is based on something that is unreal, impossible in reality, because a barren woman cannot conceive and give birth to children. But then a story can be built on that which can have anything in it, because the whole thing is to be taken with a bucket full of salt. Another similar situation comes later in the Gita, in the 15th chapter. It is said that this creation has no beginning or end, but there is just this temporary illusion in between, as if it exists. What it means is that the creation itself does not exist. So something that does not exist cannot have any beginning or end, and certainly does not need to be taken seriously. Verses 8 and 9 of chapter 9. Prakritim swamavashtabhya visrujami punah punah bhutagramam imam krutsnam avasham prakritir vashat na cha mam tani karmani nibadhanti dhananjaya udasina vadasinam asaktam teshu karmasu. Literal meaning: I assume my prakriti and create again and again all these beings that are naturally dependent. O Arjuna, I am passive towards all the karmas, that is creation, etc. And these karmas do not bind me. Practical insight. This creation is a natural manifestation of the Creator's inherent aspect, that is Prakriti. The Creator does not deliberately engage in any action to bring the creation into existence. It just happens. So the Creator is not directly responsible for the creation, though the creation cannot come into existence without the Creator. This points to the possibility of creation being like a dream, which happens because the dreamer is sleeping, and the dream is a natural phenomenon in sleep. The dreamer does not design the dream, nor does he control the dream, but it happens in a natural way that is inherent to the way the dreamer is made. Verse 22 of chapter 9. Ananyash mam ye janaha paryupasate tesham nityabhiyuktanam yogakshemam vahamyaham. Literal meaning: I take care of the day-to-day needs of the desireless bhaktas who contemplate on me with faith, worship me, and remain merged in me all the time. Practical insight: Bhakti is the easiest and most powerful means to attain liberation. A truly devoted seeker has faith in the divine and remains engrossed in him without harboring any desires. The verse further asserts that the divine takes care of the bhakta's day-to-day needs, and hence he does not have to worry about his day-to-day life. This should be interpreted to mean that such a true bhakta, being desireless, has very minimum needs, and those are easily provided for in some manner by the divine. In other words, such a bhakta does not work with the aim of making our life as much comfortable and enjoyable as possible, like most of us do. However, his minimum needs will somehow be taken care of. It may be by way of bhiksha, that is alms, or it may be by way of support from some other people in the family or even outside. Or he could earn it through some kind of minimum work or help he may render in a household that is not onerous and that allows him to remain in God consciousness even while doing those simple chores. It will all depend on the individual situation. But it should not be misinterpreted to mean that a bhakta can get whatever he wants from the divine. Verses 26 and 27 of chapter 9. Patram pushpam phalantoyam yo me bhaktya prayachati tadaham bhaktyupparhutam prayatatmanaha yat karoshi yadashnasi yad juhoshi yadadasi yat tapasyasi kaunteya tat kurushva madarpanam. Literal meaning: I accept whatever a pure-minded bhakta devotedly offers me, be it a leaf, a flower, a fruit, or just plain water. Arjuna, offer to me everything that you do, whether eating, putting into a yag, giving away in charity, and do by way of penance. Practical insight: Bhakti has everything to do with the mental attitude and nothing with the external rituals performed and materials offered to God. It is all about a sincere God consciousness while remaining engaged in the day-to-day activity. It is about an attitude that my life is for the divine and not for myself. Having said that, the external rituals and materials offered by way of a ritualistic worship may help the bhakta focus on God during those rituals and the preparations. To that extent, it may be useful to engage in ritualistic worship. But it is important to remember that God does not need all that from us for His benefit. He is Almighty, and there is nothing that a bhakta can give Him except sincere devotion. So, rituals of bhakti are only secondary, if at all. Besides, often most people engaging in worship based on material offerings and elaborate rituals get entangled in the question, am I doing it right? As a result of which, a fear arises in their mind about getting punished by the deity if they are doing something wrong. Engaging in worship but having one's mind elsewhere, that is, mundane day-to-day living, cannot get the real benefit of worship. I will dare say that 5 minutes of simple, sincere, and focused mental engagement with the divine is better than 50 minutes of elaborate worship with mind having strayed to the issues at the work day ahead. Verses 30 to 32 of chapter 9. अपिचेत सुदुराचारो भजते माम अनन्य भाक् साधुरेव समन्तव्यः सम्यग् व्यवसितो हि सः क्षिप्रं भवति धर्मात्मा शश्वच्छान्तिं निगच्छति कौन्तेय प्रतिजानीहि न मे भक्तः प्रणश्यति मां हि पार्थव्यपाश्रित्य येऽपि स्युः पापयोनयः स्त्रियो वैश्यास्तथा शूद्रास्तेऽपि यान्ति परां गतिम्. Literal meaning: even if a person was engaged in bad karmas earlier, but then he starts worshipping me faithfully, he should be considered as a sadhu, a holy man, because now his thinking is right. He soon becomes a dharmatma, that is, righteous man, and attains eternal peace. In short, Arjuna, understand this clearly that my bhakta never gets annihilated. Even those born as women, vaishyas, shudras, etc., can attain the best state by taking shelter in me. Practical insight: neither a seeker's past deeds nor his caste or sex matter if he surrenders to God in all sincerity. Even if he had been a big sinner in the past, he can still get liberated if he now pursues sincere bhakti. Sage Valmiki is the prime example of this. He was a robber for most part of his early life. But once he felt sincere repentance and started pursuing bhakti, he became a great sage and was liberated. What it indicates is that it is what you are here and now that is important, and not what you did in the past. It can be interpreted to mean that whatever happens at a given moment is like a ripple on the ocean surface. Once that moment is past, whatever happened in that moment ceases to matter, just like the ripple disappears and then no signs of it remain. In effect, we should focus on the present moment, every single moment, and remain in God consciousness till the last breath, and then liberation is assured. This completes chapter 9. I will stop here and continue with chapter 10 the next time we meet. Until then, bye, take care.